Hi, everyone. So here I am with my co-author, Dr. Diane McIntosh. And today we're going to talk to you about what we brand as 8 proven guidelines for creating belonging in a hybrid reality. And so, Diane, just before we get into our conversation today, how are you doing?
Well, I'm leading a startup and we're always at a critical period. We've had some huge wins and then some big challenges, which I think is all part and parcel of being a part of a startup.
Right. So are you going through a winning moment or a challenging moment as we have this conversation?
Yes. That's how I answer that. But I will say that the shelf life of a win is approximately, if I'm lucky, 37 minutes.
Right.
As, uh, with a fast follow of, the ground falling out from beneath me. And so you got to kind of hold on to those wins with all of your fingernails dug into them, trying to ride that wave as long as you can, because that's just the nature of the beast.
Exactly. And in fact, that's such an appropriate beginning to this call because when you have the win, you want to capture the win. Because as the great coach Tom Landry said, when you win, nothing hurts. Knowing, of course, that after the win, there's going to be the aftermath and you're going to have to deal with the nadir and then the inevitable series of losses. Because I don't know about you, Diane, but my ratio is I get 9 losses for every win. But that one win more than makes up for the 9 losses, right? And so a large part of what we talk about, not in today's session, is resilience. That'll be for another session. But today we want to talk about 8 proven guidelines for creating belonging in a hybrid reality. And the sense of belonging is so important, feeling like you are connected to a group of people who share your values and who've got your back and will support you through the wins and the losses. And just like we're having this call on Riverside today, the vast majority of interactions are going to be remotely. And so somehow we need to retain the sense of cohesion, the sense of safety, sense of structure, even when we are literally thousands of miles apart. So we go through these 8 proven guidelines, Diane, and the first is repeat your raison d'etre relentlessly. So, in other words, at the beginning of every conversation, at the beginning of every interaction, redeclare or refresh your purpose. So, our purpose in having this conversation is to help people really feel like they belong here and give them a series of techniques where they can instill the sense of belonging and certainty and safety in their stakeholders. Diane, what is your raison d'etre? What's the purpose that you share with your intrepid group of fellow rapid colleagues as you begin every conversation?
This hybrid bit, and I read it again in preparation for this conversation. It just resonates with me completely because my team is spread across not just Canada, but we have people in the Middle East. We are spread everywhere. So everything we do is a hybrid experience. So it becomes even more important for me to live every piece of this chapter every single day. So the really, my job is to make sure that my team has this sense when they wake up every morning and it's a work morning that they have that meaning. They know, why is it that I'm getting up and doing this every day? Because that's the way you make progress, is that people wake up and they go, okay, this is what Rapids is about. This is what I'm trying to do. And we're going to have missteps. We're going to have those dips in the road. Sometimes they happen more than others. But the thing that keeps you going is having this sort of recognition of the greater good that you're trying to establish. So our mission is that we want to dramatically improve mental health care outcomes. So my team's core purpose that we talk about really every day is creating a world where optimal healthcare decisions are made with confidence and compassion. That That's our purpose. And then from there, we can build on delivering that purpose. We set goals, big and small, but everything that we do is rooted in that core purpose. So that's that central theme that really disseminates through everything that we do.
I love that. And, even as you communicated that, I felt it at a visceral level. And what's really important, and I'll read you a statement from the book. We say here, according to Gallup, only 13% of US employees believe their leaders communicate effectively, and just 15% strongly agree that their organization's leadership makes them feel enthusiastic about the future. And all of that talks directly to the lack of purpose. So right up front, we want everyone watching or listening to this to understand that no matter what the meeting, reiterate the purpose so people apply meaning to the conversation that follows.
And Mike,
So,
the purpose should not just articulate what you make or what you do. It's not Rapids as a product. That's not what the purpose is. It's what you stand for. That is where the heart comes from. People don't wake up and say, yay, I make a TV. They want to make people give people something that brings joy to their lives or connects them with others. Or that is a purpose, is a deeper thing. It's what do we stand for? Just focusing on the product or the service really is a trap. And so because everything's changing, and Rapids is a digital technology, what it is actually changes pretty much every day, but our purpose stays the same, and it allows us to adapt and grow. And when you're a startup, you got to fail fast, you got to be agile, but the purpose does not change.
Love it. As someone once said to me, if you want people to take a stand, remind them what they stand for.
That's it.
Love that.
What do we stand for? That's our purpose.
Love it. So let's go to the second core element in terms of creating belonging in a hybrid reality, and that is committing to optimizing communication. And this is an environment where you cannot over communicate as long as it's the right kind of communication. And so if there's too much time in between meetings, then the noise and the monkey chatter starts to take up important bandwidth. And so oftentimes when I don't reach out to folks and then I reach out to them, they go, why has it been so long since we've had the conversation? Because somehow I've got carried away, they've got carried away, and without that constant reminder, it's too easy for people to be distracted and lose sight of the main thing. And so, Diane, in the book, we say that one of the most important nouns in the English language is remind. Remind, put things back in the mind, front and center. So, Diane, just your thoughts around what it means in your world to commit to optimizing communication.
Well, I think it starts with respecting everyone's time.
Yes.
So as a physician, I run on time, and I know that's weird for a doctor to run on time, but it's because I hate going to my doctor and having to wait an hour and a half to be able to get in. So the only time I run overtime is when a patient really needs me. And then I let people know the reason I'm late is because I was needed. And that doesn't happen very often because I really respect your time. So I apologize for that. And I don't have meetings for meetings' sake. I have meetings with a clear agenda, with goals and expectations. So these are sacrosanct. You attend, you turn your camera on and all that sort of stuff. I respect your time. So we have actually built in a bio break so we can start at 5 minutes after the time because we're all virtual all day long. And also there's the business meeting. So we're clear, this meeting has these goals and outcomes, but also making the time, especially as leaders, for those personal meetings where you reach out and find out not just, and I'm the worst for how's it going. I start almost every meeting like that, but really what you want to know is, tell me how you're doing. Are there any challenges you're facing? So you can start with the how's it going, but then okay, let's get to how is it actually going for you? Are you running into any barriers because that's my job here, is to help you to navigate those, and not to navigate them for you, but to work with you so that you can navigate them. Because as a leader, communication on my team is always my responsibility, but it should be also everyone's responsibility within the team to recognize we have to keep going with our very strong communication. That is what kills us if we don't.
Well, clearly, Diane, you've internalized the lessons of the book because we say here it's always your responsibility to keep the connection alive. Without your active endeavors, entropy will take hold, connections will wither, people will lose touch with each other, cohesion will crumble. On the other hand, remember that people value rituals and patterns of predictability in their lives. As the orchestrator and owner of meaningful meetings, you can give that predictability to them. So let's go to the third element. And this is one that I love, and that is be an authentic actor. Now, when I tell that to people, they think that that is a contradiction in terms. But one can act authentically where you're being you, but you're being you to the maximum you can be, and you being the you that is appropriate to the situation. So there's Mike Lipkin, the individual, and then there's Mike Lipkin, the player on the stage who's playing a certain role and committing to a certain set of benefits to his stakeholders. So in this conversation, Diane, I am being hopefully an entertaining participant in a vibrant podcast with his fellow author. And we are together are inspiring and empowering people to go out there and practice these principles in their life. So I'm consciously acting here. And I'm acting as I look at the webcam because the webcam, by definition, reduces you to a thumbnail on a screen. So I want people to think about acting as not an act of being disingenuous. It's simply being the best you can be in that moment. So, Diane, as a physician, but also as a psychiatrist, talk to us just a little bit about this apparent contradiction of being authentic and being an actor at the same time.
Well, I just last night, I had a terrible day yesterday. It was very stressful with lots of startup nightmare stuff. And at the very end of the day, I had to give a talk for a group of healthcare professionals, which is something I generally really enjoy. But I was feeling just exhausted and frustrated and unhappy. But as soon as I get into that role, which is a different role than my all day, it just changes everything. It changes the way I feel about things. So I guess give yourself some grace. Sometimes you just feel crappy, but once you enter into that new meeting, you have to kind of push where you are right now out of the way and embody that new role. And I just lived that last night. One thing I want to say is, as I'm reading through this, and it's just my everyday, so it was very enjoyable to read it again and again and again. But when you do screw up, and I do, I am someone who, admittedly, when I get frustrated, and I hate this about me, I can get tearful. And you've seen me do that before. And I've explained that to you, Mike, that I don't cry because I'm sad. I do cry because I'm sad. But if I'm crying in a work context, it's because I'm so frustrated. And I don't like that about myself. I think you have to just own these things about yourself. If you do screw up, if you do behave in a manner that makes you unhappy with yourself, hopefully within, acceptable guardrails, for heaven's sakes, own it and apologize if you made other people uncomfortable or said something that you really regret, and be truly contrite in your apology, but just own it. People respect you more if you own your mistakes.
Yes.
It's a superpower to be vulnerable and say, you know what, I was not my best self and I am very sorry.
No, that is so cool. So, authenticity is kind of back of hand. Vulnerability is front of hand, but they're really interchangeable. And as you go through the moments of authenticity and vulnerability, then there are going to be moments where to lift yourself up, you then need to act the way you want to be. So let's go to the fourth element. And this is a very simple one, and it's simply mastering the technology. So I've got a few years on you, Diane. I call myself not a sexagenarian, but a sexy genarian. But I'm actually
you'll need to unpack that for me there.
And that's a whole podcast on its own. But even as we talk now, we've discovered this wonderful medium, Riverside, which is better than Teams and Zoom. And I'm using my iPhone as my webcam, and I'm on my Mac, and you are crystal clear, and you're actually in the technology business. But Diane, there's so many conversations that I have where someone is grainy and the sound is awful, and what is already a difficult situation communicating remotely becomes excruciating. So I'm just curious as to your thought as someone who's not a digital native, but just your thoughts around what it means to master the technology.
Well, it's critically important, and also to be in the technology. For heaven's sakes, if you're in a virtual meeting like this, keep your camera on. It is not respectful for everyone to have their camera off. And we on our team have said, when we're on team meetings, you need to have your camera on. And
Yes.
we'll talk more about other aspects of that. But you want to make communication as easy as possible in a difficult communication milieu. We've gotten better at it, but it is not the same as being human to human in a room together. You can miss the nuances. You don't see the body language as well. It's easier to misread. So you want to make sure that you do things, you have your technology set up as best as you possibly can. If you're in a situation, and I certainly have been, where I've had to be in my car on a way to a meeting, and I haven't made it on time because of traffic, so I'm having my meeting on my phone on the side of the road. I'm parallel parking and on a meeting. You own it from the beginning. Be contrite. I'm very sorry. This is not the way this should work. And my technology is not up to scratch. I couldn't be hardwired in this building, so it is not as good as it normally would be. So you acknowledge the fact that you are technologically not as perfect as you might be, and it is frustrating for people. You can tell when people are not present, and this is why it's important to keep that camera on, because people want to know that they're not talking to a blank wall of a bunch of emojis. They want you to have that camera on, and they want to be able to communicate with you without you going on and off constantly.
Right. Well, one of the things I learned from you, Diane, and you can see what I'm doing right here, because what Diane told me when we started talking is she said, I want to see your hands. I want to make sure that you're not multitasking as you're talking to me. And so I thought that was just a very simple way of demonstrating how engaged you are with others, just the simple device of letting them see that you're all into the conversation. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. So, Diane, let's go to the fifth element, and hopefully folks have already seen us practice this, and that is, tell a great story. So in other words, there is so much going on around us all the time. There's so much noise. There's so much distraction, even as I'm talking to you right now. There are little pop-ups happening, and there are little noises from around me across the road from my house. There's a building that's going up. So being able to tell a great story and capture people's attention is crucial. So in this call, I've shared some stories. You've shared what you've been through, but just give us your sense of the power of a story from a psychological perspective.
Well, one of the things before, in the past, I used to do a lot of medical education, tons of it. This was my thing. And I've learned over the years that the best way for me to be able to engage my colleagues is by telling clinical stories that grab their attention, because you want to draw people in and think about their own experience so that they can generalize to themselves and make themselves part of the communication. So if I'm with my team, I often start off by telling them about something moronic I did or something silly that happened, because I am a human being first and foremost, and I have, a life outside of my work. And so stuff happens. I want to hear what crazy thing is going on with them or with their life or with what's important to them, and also the sad things that are going on, so that we can support you. So I find that by telling a story, whether it's a clinical story or a personal story, pulls people in so they see themselves and become an ally in your experience, and they're more likely to engage in what you have to say.
Beautiful. And so what you've just done right there is we say there's a 5-point template for you to tell a story, because when you tell story in a business context, the story is not the hero. The story is a means to the end, and the end is enhanced understanding. So we say, number one, what was the challenge? What specific problem or crisis needed to be resolved? Number two, response. What actions were taken? Number three, the outcome. What results were achieved? Number four, the lesson, what lessons were learned, and then finally the call to action, what things should you do differently. So let's go to the sixth element here. And look, this is a pretty straightforward one, and that is animate your style. So something happens to people when they're on a Zoom or a Teams call. They tend to become a little wooden, tend to become a little self-conscious because they're looking at themselves in the thumbnail. They tend to be a little ambivalent or uncertain because oftentimes they don't even know who they're talking to. They tend to be somewhat insecure because, to your point, Diane, a lot of the folks don't have their cameras on. So talk to me about the importance of animating your style to compensate for the compression or the reduction of who and what you are that the webcam performs and reflects you on the screen as this tiny image.
Well, I think we're both very good at this. We try to play to the camera. We use our face and our hands and the intonation of our voice to try to engage people. And this is why this all fits together, this whole chapter, so well, because if you tell a story that lightens the mood sometimes, or even darkens the mood but moves the heart, right? Those things make people feel an emotion and make them a little more comfortable showing that emotion. I find if you're uncomfortable seeing yourself, turn yourself off. You can still, other people need to see you, but I don't need to see me. I need to see you. And so, and that's a more of a normal conversation. We look weird to ourselves because we don't usually look at ourselves looking into a camera. It is different than looking into a mirror. So if you turn your view off, but you look at the other person and then try to react to what they're saying, and if I can make you laugh or feel lighter or feel more comfortable, that means you're more likely to actually animate along with me, and we have a more fulsome conversation. Smiling.
No, exactly. And that's a key point because some folks find it deeply unsettling to see themselves on the screen as a, let's just call it a high functioning narcissist. I don't mind seeing myself on the screen. And actually, Diane, when I see myself on the screen, I'm asking myself a simple question, and I invite people to do the same. If I were the other folks in this meeting, would I enjoy the visual and the audio of the experience that I'm presenting based on my participation? So let's go to the seventh element.
I have never asked myself that. Are people enjoying this visual experience? Maybe I should.
Well, maybe you should. And just, by the way, this is an N of 1. I'm enjoying the visual and the audio that you are putting forward today, Diane. So
thank you, Mike.
You've made your co-author happy this Friday.
Oh, great.
Seventh element out of 8. Listen like you're all in. And there's a very simple statement we make, Diane, and that is the way we listen to others becomes their opinion of themselves, and it becomes even more important in a hybrid situation. So oftentimes someone will present and they'll ask for questions or comments and they get 0. So then they left wondering whether they made an impact, whether people were even listening, whether they were even on the same call. And so after the call, they feel even more insecure or uncertain than before the call. So Diane, just your thoughts around how do you listen in such a way or participate in such a way that the other person feels heard and even more importantly, validated?
Well, another thing we say here is the most important part of a substantive conversation is not the topic, it's your response. People want you to respond to what they have to say, to their feelings, to play back for them. Nothing signals safety, nothing signals I'm here than your total engagement. And that's why, with my saying to my team, I want to see your hands because I don't want people clicking away. I want to know that you're connecting because you don't actually learn or hear or understand. Multitasking, none of us are good at it. Our brains don't work like that. So right now I'm asking you to listen, and that means you can't be typing and dealing with all these other things and pouring your tea all at the same time. So none of us want to be seen as boring. None of us want to feel stupid. And so it's really important as you're listening that you show people, I'm hearing you, you're safe. Let's get moving with this topic.
Beautiful. And do you feel like I'm listening like that to you now, Diane?
You always do. You always make me feel that way.
Beautiful. So look, let's wrap on the eighth element, and this is a simple but important one, and that is recover quickly. So the cool thing about this podcast, and I'm sure folks can see it, is Diane and I know what we're going to cover off before the talk starts, but we don't rehearse what we're going to say, and there's no edits here. We start and we close, and so I may not say things as clearly as I want to say them or as cohesively as I want them to come across, but guess what? It is what it is, and let's move on to the next point. So sometimes I'm in a presentation or in a virtual conversation, and I can see someone has lost their way, or the slide doesn't work, or they might have made a point and it didn't land. And I can see them being visibly unsettled, and that then really gets in the way of the rest of their presentation to the point where afterwards they beat themselves up because that they made that mistake. But the lesson that we want you to take away from this call is that it's never going to go perfectly, or when it does, that's a minor miracle. But if you do go through some kind of snafu, recover quickly. People expect it. You're just human. And in fact, it may even endear you to folks if they see you fumble and stumble your way to the finish line. So just your thoughts, Diane, as we wrap around what it means to recover quickly when you're on a presentation that doesn't go the way you want it to.
I think I couldn't have said it better, Mike. The reality is we're all going to stumble. We're all going to feel like we're pushed off our game for a moment. And I find if I lost a word, it's funny how it's milliseconds, but in your brain, it feels much bigger. Just say inside your head, slow. I take a breath and I go, I think I've lost my way for a moment. Let's start again. And, with a smile, we're all human. People, that old Jerry Seinfeld joke about, people hate public speaking so much that if they're asked to give a eulogy, they'd rather be in the coffin than actually have to give the eulogy. So they hate public speaking. So everyone has empathy for you when you're standing up there. If you find that your voice is quavering, you've said the wrong word, or you've gotten off topic a little bit, just give yourself a moment to breathe and give a little smile and say, I think I got a little lost there. Let's start again. Other people will smile. Off you go.
Perfect. So that's it for today. We spoke to you about the 8 proven guidelines for creating belonging in a hybrid reality. Repeat your raison d'etre relentlessly. Commit to optimizing communication. Be an authentic actor. Master the technology. Tell a great story. Animate your style. Listen like you're all in. Recover quickly. This is Mike Lipkin. This is my co-author, Dr. Diane McIntosh. And we'll see you soon at a laptop near you.
Thank you.